The palace of Velith Prime was made of crystal. It rose from the ground like a dream, catching the light of 3 suns and throwing rainbows across the white stone streets. Millions of beings lived in its shadow. They walked with grace. They spoke with soft voices. They lived long lives and died peaceful deaths. The Valari were beautiful creatures, tall and thin, with skin like polished silver and eyes that held the colors of distant nebulas. They had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 10,000 years, not through war, not through conquest. They survived because they knew one simple truth that other species never learned. When danger comes, you run. Tejo had worked in the palace for 3 years. He was 28 years old. Born on Earth, raised in the ruins of Sol after the occupation. He was not tall. He was not beautiful. His skin was brown and scarred, and his eyes held nothing but the dark color of coffee beans. Among the Valari guards, he looked like a stone among diamonds. Nobody noticed him. That was fine. He did not need to be noticed. Every morning, Tejo woke in his small room in the guard quarters. He put on his uniform. He checked his weapon. He walked to his post outside the eastern corridor of the Queen's wing. He stood there for 8 hours. Then he went back to his room, ate his meal, and slept. This was his life. Simple, quiet, invisible. The other guards did not speak to him. Sometimes they looked at him with confusion in their strange eyes. Sometimes they laughed at jokes he could not hear. Captain Minho, the head of the Royal Guard, had explained it to him once. "Your species confuses us," the captain had said. His voice was like music, smooth and perfect. You fight wars over invisible lines on maps. You die for ideas that exist only in your minds. You kill each other over whose imaginary god is real. And then you call yourselves intelligent. And in Lever Prize, Tejo had said nothing. There was nothing to say. The captain was not wrong. Humans were strange. Tejo knew this. He had grown up surrounded by proof. His mother had died when he was 7 years old. Soldiers had come to their hiding place in the broken subway tunnels beneath the city. She could have run. The back exit was open. She could have grabbed Tejo and his little sister and disappeared into the darkness. Instead, she had pushed them behind her. She had picked up a metal pipe. She had stood in the doorway and fought until there was nothing left of her to fight with. Tejo and his sister had escaped through the back exit. They had survived because their mother had not. That was 21 years ago. Tejo still remembered the sound of her voice in those last moments. She had not screamed. She had not cried. She had simply said, "Run, my loves. Run, and do not look back." He had looked back, just once. He wished he had not. Now he stood in a crystal palace on an alien world, guarding a queen who did not know his name. It was peaceful. It was safe. It was everything his mother had wanted for him. But sometimes, late at night, Tejo wondered if peace was really what he was looking for. The queen of the Valari Empire was named Lyra. She was 300 years old, which was young for her kind. Her hair was like spun moonlight, and her voice could make flowers bloom or armies weep. She ruled with wisdom and kindness, and her people loved her. Tejo saw her sometimes, walking through the corridors with her advisors. She moved like water flowing downhill, effortless and beautiful. She never looked at him. Why would she? He was just another guard. Less than that, he was a human guard, a curiosity, a requirement of the Galactic Union's diversity laws. The Valari had joined the Union 2 centuries ago. The agreement was simple. Member species must accept workers from other member worlds. The Valari had accepted this with grace. As they accepted all things, they hired humans for low-level positions. They smiled their perfect smiles. They pretended not to notice how ugly and violent and strange these creatures were. Tejo did not mind. He had learned long ago that what others thought of him did not change who he was. There was one human who spoke to him sometimes. Her name was Hana. She worked in the diplomatic corps, helping to manage relations between Earth and the Valari Empire. She was 32 years old, with short black hair and a smile that reminded Tejo of his sister. "You should talk more," Hana told him one evening. They were sitting in the small garden behind the guard quarters, watching the three suns set in colors that Earth could never produce. The Valari think you are strange because you are so quiet. They think I am strange because I am human, Tejo said. Talking will not change that. Hana laughed. Maybe. But at least they would know your name. I do not need them to know my name. Then what do you need? Tejo thought about this question for a long time. He watched the suns sink below the crystal towers of the city. He listened to the sound of alien birds singing songs that no human had ever written. I need to be useful, he finally said. I need to know that my life means something. That when I die, I will have left something good behind. Hana was quiet for a moment. Then she reached over and touched his hand. You sound like every human who ever lived, she said softly. We all want that. It is the one thing that makes us who we are. The Valari live to survive. We live to matter. The first alarm came 3 days later. Tejo was at his post when the sound ripped through the crystal halls. It was a tone he had never heard before. Deep, urgent, wrong. Around him, the Valari guards began to move. Their perfect faces showed something that looked almost like fear. Captain Minho appeared at the end of the corridor, shouting orders in his musical voice. The Doran have come. All units to evacuation positions. Protect the Queen. Tejo felt his heart turn to ice. The Doran. He had heard stories about them. Everyone had. They were raiders. Conquerors. Destroyers of worlds. They were supposed to be 3 systems away. Fighting the Keth Alliance. They were not supposed to be here. But the sky outside the crystal windows told a different story. It was filled with ships. Hundreds of ships. Thousands of ships. They fell toward the planet like a rain of fire. The Doran had come for the Queen, and Tejo understood, with a certainty that felt like destiny, that his quiet life was about to end. The palace shook like a living thing in pain. Explosions bloomed across the city, turning crystal towers into falling rain. The beautiful world of Velith Prime was burning, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Tejo ran through corridors filled with screaming servants and shouting guards. The Valari moved like water around him, flowing toward exits, toward safety, toward survival. It was what they did. It was what they had always done. When the fire comes, you do not fight it. You flow away from it and wait for it to die. He found Captain Minho near the entrance to the Queen's chambers. The tall Valari was surrounded by 20 guards, all of them armed, all of them afraid. Their silver skin seemed pale, almost gray. Their beautiful eyes were wide with something that looked like barely controlled panic. Human, Minho said when he saw Tejo. Fall in with the rear guard. We are taking the Queen to the escape vessel. Tejo nodded and took his position. His plasma pistol felt small in his hand. Useless. The Doran wore armor that could stop most energy weapons. He might as well be carrying a toy. But he did not throw it away. A toy was still better than nothing. The doors to the Queen's chambers opened, and Lyra stepped out. She was dressed in simple traveling clothes. Her moonlight hair pulled back. Her face calm. She looked at her guards with eyes that held no fear, only sadness. My children, she said softly, I am sorry. I brought this upon you. Do not speak such words, my queen, Minho said. The Doran are animals. They attack without reason or honor. This is not your fault. Lyra smiled, but there was no happiness in it. Perhaps. But they came for me. And my people will die for me. That is a burden I must carry. They began to move. The formation was perfect, just like in all the drills. Guards at the front. Guards at the sides. Guards at the back. The Queen in the center, protected by living walls of silver flesh. Tejo was at the rear, watching the shadows behind them, listening for sounds that did not belong. They reached the stairs leading down to the underground hangar. The escape vessel was waiting there, a small ship fast enough to outrun anything the Doran had. If they could reach it, the Queen would live. The Empire would survive. Everything would be fine. They were halfway down the stairs when the explosion came. It ripped through the wall like a fist through paper. Stone and crystal flew through the air. Guards screamed and fell. Tejo was thrown against the wall, his ears ringing, his vision white with pain. When he could see again, he saw hell. The Doran had breached the lower level. They stood at the bottom of the stairs, a wall of black armor and red eyes. They were massive creatures, twice the size of any Volari. Built like mountains given life, their weapons glowed with the promise of death. And behind them, through the shattered wall, Tejo could see the hangar. The escape vessel was in flames. There would be no running today. Fall back, Captain Minho shouted. Secondary passages. Move. The remaining guards obeyed instantly. They turned and ran, their bodies moving before their minds could even think. It was instinct. It was biology. It was 10,000 years of evolution telling them that survival was the only thing that mattered. Tejo watched them go. One by one, they disappeared into the darkness of the upper corridors. Captain Minho was the last. He paused at the top of the stairs and looked back. His eyes met Tejo's for just a moment. There was something in that look, shame, perhaps, or confusion. The captain could not understand why the human was not running. Every cell in Minho's body was screaming at him to flee, and he could not ignore that scream. No Volari could. Human, he said. Come, now. Tejo did not move. Minho waited one more second. Then survival won, as it always did, and he vanished into the shadows. Queen Lyra stood alone on the stairs. Below her, the Doran began to climb, their heavy boots shaking the stone. Above her, the corridor was empty. Her guards were gone. Her empire was falling. Her life was about to end. Then she heard footsteps behind her, and she turned. The human guard was walking down the stairs, past her, toward the enemy. His small weapon was in his hand, and his face held no expression at all. He moved like someone walking to work on a normal day, calm, steady, sure. He stopped 3 steps below her and turned to face the climbing Doran. He raised his pistol. He took a breath. Human, Lyra said. Her voice was strange, broken by confusion. What are you doing? You must flee. The secondary passages are still open. You can still survive. Tejo did not look at her. He kept his eyes on the enemy. No, Your Majesty, he said. I do not think I will. You will die, probably. For what? I am not your queen. This is not your world. You owe me nothing. Tejo was quiet for a moment. The Doran were closer now. He could see their red eyes glowing in the darkness. He could hear their rough breathing, like animals excited by the smell of blood. When I was 7 years old, he said. My mother died protecting me and my sister. She could have run. She chose not to. For 21 years, I have wondered why. Why did she throw away her life for 2 small children who might die anyway? Why did she choose death when life was still possible? He turned his head slightly, just enough to see the queen from the corner of his eye. I think I understand now, he said. She did not choose death. She chose us. And choosing us meant that death did not matter anymore. He faced forward again. I am choosing you, Your Majesty. What happens to me after that choice is not important. Lyra stared at him. In 300 years of life, she had never seen anything like this. Her species could not understand it. Her biology could not accept it. Every instinct she had was screaming that this human was insane, that his behavior was wrong, that survival was the only truth in the universe. But somewhere, deep in a part of her mind that had never been touched before, something else was waking up. Something that looked at this strange, small, unremarkable creature and felt something that might have been awe. You are going to die, she whispered. Tejo smiled. It was a small smile. Sad and tired and somehow peaceful. Everyone dies, Your Majesty, he said. The only question is, what we die for. 1. The first Doran reached the top of the lower stairs. It was huge. A monster in black metal. Its weapon already rising. Behind it came more. Dozens more. An army of death climbing toward a single human with a tiny gun. Tejo pulled the trigger, and the corridor exploded into fire. The first shot hit the lead Doran in the gap between its helmet and chest plate. The creature screamed, a terrible sound like metal being torn apart, and fell backward into its companions. Tejo was already moving, already firing, already counting the seconds in his head. 12 minutes. That was how long the emergency signal took to reach the nearest Allied fleet. 12 minutes, until help could arrive. 12 minutes of hell. He had to survive for 12 minutes. No. He had to keep the Queen alive for 12 minutes. His own survival did not matter. The Doran recovered quickly. They were warriors, born and bred for battle. One fallen soldier meant nothing to them. They climbed over their dead companion and rushed forward, their weapons blazing red fire. Tejo threw himself to the side. The blast passed so close he felt his skin burn. He rolled, came up on one knee, and fired 3 shots in rapid succession. 2 missed. 1 found its mark, punching through a Doran's eye slit. The creature dropped. 2 down. Countless more to go. Your Majesty, he shouted over the sound of weapons fire. Move back. Stay behind me. Do not run into the open corridors. They may have soldiers waiting there. Lyra pressed herself against the wall, her eyes wide. She watched this human move like nothing she had ever seen before. He was not graceful like a Valari. He was not powerful like a Doran. He was something else entirely, something that moved with desperate, ugly, beautiful purpose. The Doran came in waves. Tejo met each wave with fire and fury. He used the stairs as a choke point, forcing them to climb toward him 1 or 2 at a time. He aimed for gaps in their armor, for joints and visors, and the soft places where metal met flesh. His pistol screamed. His arms burned. His heart pounded like a drum of war. 4 minutes passed. His pistol's power cell died. He threw the useless weapon at the nearest Doran's face. It was a distraction. Nothing more. But it gave him the second he needed. He dove forward, grabbed the fallen blade of a dead Doran warrior, and came up swinging. The blade was heavy, too heavy for a human. It should have been impossible to lift. But Tejo did not care about impossible. He cared about the Queen behind him. He cared about the 12 minutes that were now only 8. He cut through a Doran's arm. The creature howled and fell back. Another took its place. Tejo stabbed it through the chest, then used its falling body as a shield against the next attacker. Blood covered him now. Some of it was his. Most of it was not. The Doran began to hesitate. This was wrong. This was not how prey was supposed to act. This small creature should be running. It should be screaming. It should be dead. Instead, it kept fighting. It kept killing. It looked at them with eyes that held no fear, only cold, terrible purpose. What is this thing? One Doran shouted. Why will it not die? Tejo heard the question. He did not answer. He was too busy surviving, too busy counting. 6 minutes left. Then 5. Then 4. A blast caught him in the shoulder. He spun, crashed against the wall, felt bones shift in ways they should not. Pain exploded through his body like liquid fire. He could not lift his left arm anymore. The blade fell from his hands, but he did not fall. He would not fall. He picked up the blade with his right hand. He stepped forward. He kept fighting. The Doran stopped attacking. They stood on the stairs, staring at this impossible creature. Behind them, more soldiers gathered. The corridor was full of them now. Hundreds of warriors waiting to claim their prize. And then a new voice spoke. Enough. The Doran parted like water, and a figure walked through them. He was larger than the others, his armor decorated with the bones of conquered kings. His eyes burned with intelligence, instead of simple bloodlust. This was no common soldier. This was Warlord Krev, leader of the Doran horde. He stopped at the bottom of the stairs and looked up at Tejo. His massive head tilted to one side, curious like a predator studying strange prey. You have killed 17 of my warriors, Krev said. His voice was deep, like thunder rolling across mountains. You are wounded in 7 places. Your weapon is broken. You have no hope of victory. And yet you still stand. Tejo said nothing. He gripped his blade and watched the warlord's eyes. 3 minutes. Just 3 more minutes. I have conquered 40 worlds, Krev continued. I have broken armies that numbered in the millions. I have crushed species who thought themselves invincible. But I have never seen anything like you. He took 1 step up the stairs. The Valari run. The Keth surrender. The Nox bargain for their lives. Every species in this galaxy knows that when death comes, you step aside and let it pass. But you do not step aside. You run toward death with your arms open. Another step. Why? What makes you different? What madness drives your kind to throw away your lives for things that do not matter? Tejo finally spoke. His voice was rough with pain and exhaustion, but it did not shake. She matters, he said, tilting his head slightly toward the Queen. That is all I need to know. Krev stopped. He stared at Tejo for a long moment, his red eyes unreadable. She is not your queen. She is not your species. She is nothing to you. She is someone I chose to protect. That makes her everything. Krev was silent. Behind him, his warriors shifted uneasily. They did not understand this conversation. They wanted blood, not words. But Krev understood something they did not. He had conquered 40 worlds because he knew his enemies. He knew their fears and their weaknesses. He knew how to break them. This creature could not be broken. You are dying, Krev said softly. I can see it in your eyes. You have minutes left. Perhaps less. Your body is failing. Your strength is gone. But you will not stop. Will you? You will fight until your heart gives out. Tejo smiled. It was a terrible smile, bloody and fierce. Yes, Krev nodded slowly. Then, to the shock of every Doran present, he raised his hand and gave a signal. The warriors began to retreat. What? One captain shouted. My lord, the Queen is right there. Victory is within our grasp. Victory was never within our grasp, Krev said. He did not look away from Tejo. Not today. We came for an easy conquest. We found something else. The sound of engines filled the air. Through the shattered walls, Tejo could see ships descending from the sky. Not Doran ships. Allied ships. The reinforcements had arrived. Krev began to back away, his warriors following him. I will learn about your kind, he said to Tejo. I will study you. I will understand what makes you willing to die for nothing. He paused at the edge of the broken hangar. And then, perhaps, I will know how to defeat you. He turned and walked into the smoke. Tejo watched him go. The blade fell from his fingers. His legs, which had held him up for 12 impossible minutes, finally gave out. He collapsed on the stairs, his blood pooling beneath him, his breath coming in short, shallow gasps. Queen Lyra rushed to his side. She knelt beside him, her silver hands pressing against his wounds, her beautiful face twisted with emotions she could not name. You did it, she whispered. You saved me. You impossible, insane, wonderful creature. You saved me. Tejo looked up at her. His vision was fading. The world was becoming dark and cold, but he found enough strength for one final smile. Told you, he whispered. Not one step back, then his eyes closed, and he knew nothing more. Tejo dreamed of his mother. She was standing in the kitchen of their old apartment in Seoul, before the occupation, before everything fell apart. Sunlight came through the window and made her hair shine like silk. She was humming a song he had forgotten, a song from when the world was still whole. Tejo, she said, turning to look at him. Her smile was warm, like coming home after a long journey. You did well. I am proud of you. He tried to speak, but no words came. He tried to reach for her, but his arms would not move. Rest now, she said. You have earned it. Rest. And know that you made me proud. The dream faded, and Tejo fell into darkness. He woke in a room he did not recognize. The walls were white and soft, glowing with gentle light. Strange machines surrounded him, humming quietly, their screens showing numbers and patterns he could not understand. He was alive. Somehow, impossibly, he was alive. "You should not move," a voice said. He turned his head slowly, painfully, and saw Queen Lyra sitting beside his bed. She looked different than before. Tired. Older. Human. Almost. Her perfect silver skin seemed dull, and her endless eyes held shadows he had never seen there. "Your Majesty," Tejo tried to say, but his voice was broken, barely a whisper. "Do not speak," Lyra said. She leaned forward and touched his hand gently. "You have been asleep for 18 days. The doctors said you should have died. 7 times. Your heart stopped. 7 times. They brought you back. They do not understand how you are still here." Tejo closed his eyes. 18 days. It felt like 18 seconds. It felt like 18 years. "The palace?" he asked. "Damaged, but standing." The Doran retreated when the Allied fleet arrived. "They have not returned." She paused. "We have you to thank for that. I did not do much, just held a door." Lyra made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You held a door against an army. You killed 17 of their best warriors with a pistol and a sword. You made Warlord Krev himself retreat without claiming his prize." She shook her head slowly. "In 300 years, I have never seen anything like what you did." Tejo opened his eyes and looked at her. Really looked at her, for the first time since he had arrived on this world. "May I ask you something, Your Majesty?" "You may ask me anything." "Why are you here?" "Beside my bed, I mean. You are a queen. You have 1,000 duties. Why spend your time watching a sleeping guard?" Lyra was quiet for a long moment. She looked down at her hands, folded in her lap, and seemed to struggle with words. "Because I do not understand you," she finally said. "And I need to understand. My entire species is built on the principle that survival is the highest good. We run because running means living. We retreat because retreating means tomorrow. Every cell in our bodies knows that dying is the end, and the end is to be avoided at all costs." She looked up at him. "But you did not run. You could have lived. And you chose not to. You faced certain death for someone who was not your family, not your species, not your anything. And I need to know why. I need to know what makes humans different from everything else in this galaxy." Tejo thought about her question. It was a question he had been asked before, in different words, by different people. It was a question humans had been trying to answer since they first climbed down from the trees and looked up at the stars. "I do not think we are different," he said slowly. "I think we just measure things differently. You measure value by survival. If you are alive, you have succeeded. If you are dead, you have failed. Simple, clean, logical." He paused, gathering his strength. "Humans measure value by meaning. We ask ourselves, what does my life stand for? What will people remember when I am gone? What story will they tell about me?" And if the answer is nothing, then survival feels empty, like existing without living. "But you would have left no story," Lyra said. "You would have died unknown, forgotten, a footnote in a disaster report. No one would have remembered your name. You would have remembered." Lyra blinked. "What?" "If I had died protecting you, you would have remembered. Every day for the rest of your life. You would have known that someone gave everything to keep you safe. That would have been enough. That would have been my meaning." The Queen said nothing. She stared at him with those endless nebula eyes, and something shifted in her face. Something that looked like the beginning of understanding. The door opened, and Hana walked in. She was wearing her diplomatic uniform, but her face showed no diplomacy. Only relief. Only joy. Only tears she was trying to hide. "You idiot," she said, rushing to his bedside. "You absolute idiot. I told you to talk more, not to fight an entire army by yourself. Tejo smiled weakly. I got confused. Hana laughed and cried at the same time. She grabbed his hand and squeezed it tight. The entire galaxy is talking about you, she said. They are calling you the human who would not run. There are videos. Someone in the palace recorded everything. 17 Doran warriors. 12 minutes. One human. It is everywhere. I was hoping no one was watching. Everyone was watching. Everyone is still watching. You have done something impossible, Tejo. You have made the galaxy pay attention to us. Queen Lyra stood slowly. She looked at Hana, then back at Tejo, and there was something new in her expression. Resolution. Decision. When you are recovered, she said, I would like you to come to the throne room. There is something I need to do. Something my people need to see. Tejo frowned. Your Majesty? Rest now, Lyra said. Recover your strength. You have earned more rest than one lifetime can hold. She walked to the door, then paused and looked back. I have ruled for 200 years, she said quietly. In that time, I have learned many things about many species. But I never learned anything about humans. I thought you were just animals with technology. Violent children, playing with dangerous toys. She shook her head. I was wrong. You are something else entirely. Something that frightens me and fascinates me in equal measure. Something that this galaxy needs, whether it knows it or not. She left, closing the door softly behind her. Hana watched her go, then turned back to Tejo with wide eyes. What was that about? Tejo closed his eyes and let exhaustion pull him back toward sleep. I do not know, he murmured. But I think my quiet life is over. Hana squeezed his hand again. Good, she said softly. You were never meant for a quiet life anyway. Tejo did not respond. He was already dreaming again. And in his dreams, his mother was smiling. The throne room of Velith Prime was the most beautiful place in the galaxy. Crystal pillars rose toward a ceiling that showed the stars themselves. Light danced across every surface, creating rainbows that seemed alive. Thousands of Velari filled the room, their silver bodies shining like a sea of moonlight. Tejo walked through the center of them all. He was healed now, mostly. His shoulder still ached when the weather changed, and his left arm would never be as strong as before. But he could walk. He could stand. He could face what was coming. The Velari watched him pass in silence. Some looked at him with curiosity. Some looked at him with confusion. A few looked at him with something that might have been respect. At the far end of the room, Queen Lyra sat on her crystal throne. She was dressed in her full royal garments, robes of silver and white that seemed to flow like water around her. On her head sat a crown that had been worn by 100 queens before her. Beside the throne stood Captain Minho. His face was empty, carved from stone. He did not look at Tejo. He could not. Tejo stopped at the base of the throne and knelt, as was proper. The room held its breath. Rise, Queen Lyra said, her voice carrying to every corner of the great hall. Tejo stood. 3 months ago, the queen continued. This palace was attacked. The Doran horde came for me. For my throne. For everything our empire represents. They breached our walls. They destroyed our escape routes. They trapped me in a corridor with death climbing toward me. She paused, letting the words settle over the crowd. My guards did what any Velari would do. They retreated. They sought survival. They followed our oldest instincts, our deepest teachings. I do not blame them for this. They acted as our nature commands. Captain Minho's jaw tightened, but he did not move. But one guard did not retreat, Lyra said. One guard stepped forward when all others stepped back. He was not Velari. He was not bound by our instincts. He was human. And he chose to stand between me and death, knowing that his choice meant he would likely die. She rose from her throne. This caused whispers to ripple through the crowd. Queens did not stand for subjects. It was not done. It had never been done. But Lyra did not seem to care about what had been done before. She walked down the steps of the throne and stopped in front of Taeho. This close, he could see the emotion in her eyes. Something had changed in her over the past 3 months. Something deep and permanent. Taeho of Earth, she said. You taught my people something we had forgotten. You showed us that there is more to strength than survival. There is more to courage than knowing when to run. She reached out and placed her hand over his heart. The entire room gasped. This was the highest gesture of respect in Valari culture. It was reserved for heroes of legend, for saviors of empires. No human had ever received it. You stood when others fled, Lyra continued. You bled when others ran. You showed the galaxy what one being can do when they decide that some things are worth more than their own life. She took a deep breath. Among humans, there is a tradition. Those who show exceptional courage are given a place of honor, a title, a duty. I have studied your history, Taeho. I know about your knights and your samurai. I know about your guardians who swore to protect their lords until death. Her hand pressed more firmly against his chest. I wish to create something new. Something that honors your courage and binds you to my service. Not as a common guard, not as a soldier who might retreat when danger comes, but as something more, something that has never existed in our empire before. She stepped back and raised her voice so all could hear. Taeho of Earth, I name you Shield of the Crown, first of your kind. You will stand beside my throne, and all who threaten it will know that they face not a Valari guard who fears death, but a human who runs toward it. The room exploded into sound. Some voices were confused. Some were angry. But most were filled with something else. Something that sounded almost like hope. Taeho looked at the queen, his heart pounding. Your Majesty, he said quietly, I am not sure I deserve this honor. Lyra smiled. It was a real smile. Warm and genuine. You are wrong, she said. You are the only one who deserves it. Because you never wanted it. Because you would have stood in that corridor whether anyone was watching or not. Because to you, the title means nothing compared to the duty. She returned to her throne and sat down. The room slowly fell silent again. Let it be known throughout the Empire, she declared. Let it be known across the galaxy. The throne of Velith Prime is protected by something new. Something different. Something that the Doran and all our enemies should fear. She looked at Taeho with eyes full of trust. It is protected by a human. The ceremony ended, and the crowd began to leave. Taeho stood by the throne, still trying to process what had happened. Captain Minho walked past him, paused, and spoke without looking at him. I followed my instincts, the captain said quietly. I did what any Valari would do. I am not ashamed of running. I know, Taeho said, but I am ashamed of what my running almost cost us. Minho finally turned to look at him. You are not what I thought you were. None of your kind are. I was wrong to dismiss you. Taeho nodded slowly. Thank you, Captain. Minho walked away, his silver form disappearing into the crowd. Hana appeared a moment later, grinning from ear to ear. Shield of the Crown, she said, laughing. Wait until Earth hears about this. Wait until the Galactic Union hears about this. A human, given the highest honor in the Valari Empire. This changes everything. I just wanted to do my job, Taeho said. And you did. Better than anyone in history. She punched his arm gently. I told you that you should talk more. Look what happened when you finally did something noticeable. Taeho smiled despite himself. I think I preferred being invisible. Too late for that now. You are the most famous human in the galaxy. Her smile softened. Your mother would be proud, Taeho. What you did, who you have become, she would be so proud. Taeho's eyes burned. But he did not let the tears fall. He looked up at the crystal ceiling, at the stars shining through it, and wondered if she was watching. Far across the galaxy, on a warship orbiting a conquered world, Warlord Krev sat in his command chamber. A screen before him showed images of Taeho, standing bloodied and defiant in that burning corridor. He had watched this footage 1,000 times. He still did not understand it. His advisor entered and bowed. "My lord, our scouts have identified several targets for our next campaign. 3 worlds, all weakly defended. Easy victories to restore our honor." Krev did not look away from the screen. "Do any of these worlds have humans?" "One does, my lord. A small colony on the 4th planet of the Kiran system. Remove it from the list." The advisor frowned. "My lord?" Krev finally turned away from the screen. His red eyes were troubled, uncertain in a way they had never been before. "I have conquered 40 worlds," he said slowly. "I have broken 1,000 armies. But I have never fought something that does not know how to stop. Something that chooses death rather than retreat. Something that becomes stronger when you hurt it." He stood and walked to the window of his chamber, looking out at the stars. "Find me a world without humans," he said. "I want an easy victory for once." The advisor bowed and left. Krev remained at the window, thinking about a small creature with dark eyes who had stood against an army and refused to fall. He thought about the words the human had spoken. "She is someone I chose to protect. That makes her everything." The warlord did not understand those words. But for the first time in his long life, he realized that there were things in this galaxy that he might never understand. And that frightened him more than any weapon ever could. Back on Vileth Prime, Tejo took his place beside the crystal throne. The queen smiled at him, and he nodded back. Outside the palace, the 3 suns were setting, painting the sky in colors that Earth could never produce. A new chapter was beginning, not just for him, but for humanity. The galaxy was watching now. They had seen what one human could do. They were wondering what would happen if there were more. Tejo did not think about fame or honor or the weight of representing his species. He thought about his mother. Standing in a doorway with a metal pipe, he thought about her voice, calm and loving in those final moments. "Run, my loves. Run and do not look back." He had run. He had survived. And now, at last, he had found something worth stopping for. He was Tejo of Earth, shield of the crown, and he would never run again.